we need to work together. At the end of the day, that's how this industry moves forward. So the fact that there is a positive development in the relationship between the world's biggest streaming company and the world's largest exhibition chain is a positive development for the industry. This is the Box Office Podcast. I'm Daniel Aria, the editorial director at Box Office Pro, the pulse of theatrical exhibition. And in this week's episode, I'm joined by my co-hosts and colleagues, Rebecca Pauley and Chad Kenrick from Box Office Pro, in going over the latest headlines in theatrical exhibition and previewing the week ahead at the domestic box office. It's been slow going here in October, and unfortunately, we are facing another sub-$100 million weekend. It's projected to be the fifth consecutive one in this bad streak at the box office. But there is good news, I guess, in a little bit that we'll go over. Before we do, Rebecca, Chad, let's start the way we always start, going over what we saw in the last week. Chad, I know you've been catching up with awards hopefuls.
I went to the Santa Fe International Film Festival and caught up with a few titles there. Really loved Is This Thing On? And saw one of two performances by Ethan Hawke, definitely the superior performance, I would say. Blue Moon, it's my kind of movie. It's about Lawrence Hart sitting in Sardi's while Oklahoma's opening across the street with his former songwriting partner, Richard Rodgers. And it's just a great actor movie. It's one location. It's pretty much just him in a long monologue with lots of characters kind of coming in and out. Really, really enjoyed that.
I can't wait to see that one, by the way. It's a movie about someone at the cusp of history when they know they're going to be left behind.
Yes.
In terms of like an argument for a film, this is a spicy one. When I told my wife the plot, she was like, oh, I can't wait to see that. Yeah. It sounds like a thriller. I know it's not, but it sounds like an emotional thriller.
Yeah, we're talking about the Oklahoma movie, right?
Yeah, Blue Moon.
I clearly need to see this movie because I'm not sure what you guys are referencing with that, but I do like drama.
Think about it this way. I mean, imagine spending your life with a level of success working with a partner, and then your partner goes on a side project with someone else, your creative partner, and they make a masterpiece, and they make something that completely changes the way the public thinks about the entire art form. So whatever success you had up to that point, kiss it goodbye because you're not part of the future. And that second, that 90-minute, that 2-hour span that Lawrence Hart spends at Sardi's in this film is a film about that moment. I can't think of something more difficult on a professional level to go through. And Chad, hearing you gush about this movie makes me very hopeful to see it. Our former executive editor here at Box Office, Kevin Lally, also loved this movie in press screenings. And you mentioned it's a really strong Ethan Hawke performance.
Yeah, some of his best work, hands down. It's definitely his movie. And obviously all of this stuff probably didn't happen in one night in that location, but it's based on...
Of course, that's fine. It's a movie.
Yeah, and it's based on actual letters that he wrote, conversations that he had. So it incorporates a lot of real history in the course of the evening, and I highly recommend it. I also saw another Ethan Hawke performance, The Black Phone 2. For me, The Black Phone was elevated horror. It was based on a short story by Joe Hill and had this fantastic, unhinged Ethan Hawke performance. But Black Phone 2, to me, is like traditional horror sequel fare. It has some moments. It has an interesting premise about like if you go through trauma to this extent, what does that do to you? But ultimately, it kind of goes into camp and in the direction of Freddy Krueger, where the grabber's attacking them through their dreams. And, you know, compared to what was in the first film, I felt like Ethan Hawke had very little to do in this one.
They franchised it. They Blumhoused it.
Yeah.
Which isn't the positive thing to say these days at the box office.
At least it didn't perform horribly.
Yeah, people are going to see it.
Yeah. I mean, people are going to see it. It overperformed the opening weekend of the original Black Phone. It's a solid win in a year that Blumhouse has had very few wins. I just hope that it can hold because really in the last 7 weeks, anything that's had a halfway decent opening weekend tends to drop 60% plus in week 2. It's been a nightmare. Or in the case of Taylor Swift, the listening party, whatever that subtitle is, that thing that just was around for 3 days. We haven't had a good holdover, in like 2 months? I'm hoping this one can hold on because people seem to be liking it. Rebecca, on your end, what did you catch at the movies?
On my side, I made it out to the Paris here in New York to see Netflix's release of Frankenstein by Guillermo del Toro. So I guess me saying it, I really enjoyed it. I had a great time with it. It looks amazing. I'm now part of the Netflix PR machine because it does hit streaming, I believe, 2 weeks from now. And it's having sort of a small theatrical run in the weeks leading up to that. I really had a good time with it, though. I definitely understand why Netflix acquired the Paris, because those seats are so uncomfortable that it does make you kind of want to watch it on a sofa instead of in those awful seats. I'd rather see it, in like a nice heated recliner or something like that.
Yeah.
It's funny because Netflix bought over the Paris, this historic jewel box cinema in New York City, right next to the Plaza Hotel. And they put in a ton of money on everything but the seats that have been broken since 1932.
I think basically. They reupholstered them. I felt so bad because it was a whole social thing. Like I had some friends come in and one of them's like 6'4". Like, I'm so sorry.
Oh no, I feel bad.
But no, it was a really good movie. He was Del Toro was there to do a little intro for it. It felt very Del Toro-y. You can definitely see that it's something that he's been wanting to make forever. And hey, Netflix was the one who gave him money to do that. So good for him. But I wish it were getting more of a theatrical release. But
Netflix, but I'm not going to knock it. 3 weeks from Netflix, that's the Focus Features 3 and out. That's what it is. It's the same thing. It's not like Universal is doing anything differently, right? Yeah, I'd love more screens. I'd love, a better availability, but a 3-week window.
That relationship that Netflix has with some of those major exhibitors who right now do not screen their films, at least with AMC, we have some thawing there.
Yeah, it's evolving. That's a good point. I mean, we didn't get a press release about it or anything. We had to find out through Adam Aron's X account, formerly known as Twitter. Adam Aron, the CEO of AMC, announcing last week, really out of the blue, that AMC is going to be screening some Netflix titles, and by some specifically and explicitly, the re-release of the K-pop Demon Hunters event cinema run that AMC famously did not participate in.
And which did not stop it from making.
Yeah, it still topped the box office. If I'm not mistaken, the highest weekend for Netflix at the box office, that was without AMC, as Rebecca notes. AMC is going to be opting in. Now, I don't know where this leads. Adam Aron in that X message said it's an evolving conversation. We will hear more about this.
Discussions are underway.
Whatever that means, right? Does that mean we're going to see a movie like, I don't know, the Netflix Narnia IMAX run play at all AMC locations, which would be, I would say, extremely important if that movie's only going out in IMAX locations.
I would imagine that's what those conversations are largely.
Yeah, AMC is the biggest IMAX exhibitor in the US. That's probably where this is coming from, right? Which isn't the negative thing, by the way.
It sounds like a trial balloon for...
Yeah, I don't think AMC is going to be budging its expectations of exclusivity runs anytime soon. But I think they are taking things on a case-by-case basis. I'm saying I think, I'm qualifying all of these things I'm saying, because all we have to go on here is a social media message that was about 3 sentences from the CEO of the largest exhibition chain in the world. And we'll wait for the official press release to go into more firm details. But as of now, the only solid news we can report is AMC and Netflix are getting a lot friendlier than they used to be. And AMC will be participating in the upcoming K-pop Demon Hunters sing-along re-release, which is good.
400 screens across the US and Europe. So it's definitely not a wide release. We're not talking 1,000 screens or anything like that. But, I'm glad for all the people who want to go see that in theaters who now have more of an opportunity to do so.
We need to work together. At the end of the day, that's how this industry moves forward. So the fact that there is a positive development in the relationship between the world's biggest streaming company and the world's largest exhibition chain is a positive development for the industry. Again, I don't think AMC is going to budge in any way, shape, and form. And I don't think Netflix is either. Honestly, I think they're just going to meet in the middle where it makes sense.
I'm definitely curious how this shakes out for smaller regional chains. Obviously, the independent cinemas, the more art house, they're not going to have an IMAX screen to really be invested in this IMAX Netflix Narnia situation anyway. But for the non-top 5 chains, maybe a little worried about how this shakes out for them because they don't have those Netflix relationships.
But I think whether AMC is in or not, that doesn't change the fact that Netflix is going to do business the way it always has, right? I don't think this really changes anything outside of the top 5, but it does change the outlook of how the top 5 works with this major chain. Let's not forget, Cinemark already had that, let's call it trial run, with a 1-week exclusivity runs of Netflix titles in the post-pandemic era. That kind of quietly disappeared. We just quietly didn't hear about it anymore. I'm assuming Cinemark tried it and, decided to go a different direction. And I'm sure Netflix has other things in their mind. Ultimately, this is a streamer that produces some really good movies and a lot of awful ones. And if we can get some of the good ones, everybody wins. I have no interest in getting the movie of the week in any theatrical screen in the nation.
Frankenstein was one of the good ones, so I wish it were getting more. It does feel like Del Toro won an Oscar for Pinocchio. Could they not give him a few more screens? But I guess if you're not Scorsese, then you don't have that leverage.
It's tough. But, ultimately, good news that we're seeing some development there. On the trade association side, positive news over at Cinema United with Michael O'Leary, the current president and CEO, renewing his contract for another 5 years at the helm of the trade association. And in other Cinema United news, we have Harkins Theaters CEO and President Mike Bowers coming in as the new chair of the executive board. He will be stepping in for outgoing chairman Bob Bagby from B&B Theaters. Joining Mike Bowers on this executive board leadership is Cinemark Executive Vice President and CMO Wanda Gearhart-Fearing, who is going to be serving as the vice chair of the association. We also have Colleen Barstow of the Nebraska-based Main Street Theaters serving as treasurer, and Bo Chambliss of the Georgia Theater Company continuing as board secretary of Cinema United. Those announcements coming around the annual fall summit that occurred a couple of weeks back in this industry. Elsewhere here in North America, we've got some updates from our friends up in Canada from Landmark Cinemas, the number 2 chain in the country, with a new location. Rebecca, what's going on over there?
Yeah, they're actually renovating an existing location in Nanaimo, British Columbia, I believe on Vancouver Island. They're doing like a 2-phase extensive renovation of that cinema to bring IMAX with laser ultra, luxury seating, different premiere and premium elements for moviegoers to enjoy. The second and last phase of the renovation, the whole thing is expected to be finished up by midway through next year. So good news for moviegoers in BC, because it's looking like it's going to turn into a really great theater. Barco, laser projection, Dolby Atmos sound. It's an exciting one. And then we also have some news on the side of the largest exhibitor in Canada, that of course being Cineplex. They have sold off the digital signage portion of their company, that being Cineplex Digital Media, which does a lot of signage, menu boards, not just at cinemas, but at a lot of different shopping malls and entertainment destinations around Canada and the US. We've had a lot of news from Cineplex as of late. Last year, I believe, early 2024, they sold Player One Amusement Group, which was their amusement game, arcade game style provider. And we did hear earlier this year that CEO Ellis Jacob, who's been with Cineplex for, I believe, 4 decades, is retiring at the end of 2026. So it looks like there's some streamlining going on and leading up to Ellis Jacob's retirement, freeing up of some capital. But they're still extremely diversified exhibition company. They have their fingers in like a lot of pots throughout the entertainment ecosystem in Canada.
Yeah, no, it's. I don't think it's bad news that Cineplex is increasingly focusing on its cinemas. I know they've got a lot of business lines, as you mentioned, Rebecca.
Who knew outside of this extremely niche, sub-niche, that Cineplex even used to sell arcade game consoles?
No, I know. On the vendor front, we've got some updates here from our friends over at Vista Group and Barco. Let's start over with Vista, the solutions provider in terms of software services, Chad, because there's a new integration they've just announced.
Yeah, so this is within Vista Cloud. Vista Group announced the launch of React, which is a survey tool that essentially captures real-time moviegoer sentiment. So taking that emotional data and putting it into actionable insights to help with marketing, programming, operational decisions.
Nice. I know their Movio service has been very effective in that sort of like moviegoer engagement, that big data sort of capability. When we talk about AI in this industry, I know there's a lot of concern in where AI goes in production. I completely understand that. I think when it goes in the behind the scenes effort of understanding your audience and reaching them a little bit better, companies like Vista are very well positioned to really exploit the best uses of AI in this industry. And we'll be keeping on tracking those developments in the coming months. Elsewhere in the industry, tech provider Barco has a new development with their HDR technology.
Barco announced a fully redesigned website for moviegoers, www.hdrbybarco.com, essentially serving as a one-stop resource to find showtimes for HDR by Barco films and the locations. You can do a geo search and actually look for theaters that have this technology. And they also announced, along with that, upcoming releases on the HDR by Barco slate, which includes Sony Pictures Crunchyroll's Chainsaw Man, the movie, on October 24th, Predator Badlands on November 7th, and Zootopia 2, November 26th.
It's interesting. So we already have seen Barco. Now, every time you go to see a movie at AMC, you see that laser by Barco. They're making real moves in that customer awareness side of the premium experience.
You know, I spoke with Serge Plash, one of the executive vice presidents over at Barco, in a panel down in Cineplex earlier. Wow, was it last month already? And he was just sharing how animation just pops on the screen when you watch it in this HDR technology. So Zootopia 2 is definitely one of those titles that I'm going to be seeking out to see in this format when it hits theaters this November. And looking forward at the box office, I mentioned at the top of the episode that we are currently in a, let's say, slump, I think is fair to say, here in October to kick off Q3 in the marketplace. A lot of films underperforming. That wasn't the case with last weekend's Black Phone 2, because they made a big deal about removing the from the title. That movie opening above the original Black Phone in theaters and above our own expectations. We expected the film to open between 20 to 25 million. Instead, it overperformed with a $27.3 million debut. Going into week 2, we're hoping for a solid hold because there really isn't too much in way of competition in that genre. Meanwhile, we also have 3 wide new releases hitting screens this weekend. Regretting You, the new Colleen Hoover adaptation that is coming out this weekend from Paramount, and we are expecting a $17 to $22 million opening weekend range from that title. Elsewhere, 20th Century Studios is going to be opening Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere, which is a much better title than the original title, which was Deliver Me From Nowhere, which I mean, I think we would have all been surprised if anybody outside of people in this industry knew what that was about. So I'm glad there was a change.
People outside of Jersey.
Yeah, there you go. Would have done great in New Jersey, but other than that, would have been tough. But the Springsteen at the start of that title, I think, really benefits moviegoers in this case. We are expecting a $15 to $20 million opening weekend range from that movie. And finally, from Sony on the anime side, Chainsaw Man, the movie, is expected to open between $7 to $10 million. Those 3 new releases, plus that holdover from Black Phone 2, is going to give us a pretty decent weekend. I'm not sure, however, that we crossed the $100 million mark, which is becoming an issue because it's been, I think, over a month since we had a $100 million weekend in this industry. Unfortunately, looking at the calendar, yikes. I mean, mid-November.
This weekend, and then we have Halloween. I mean, obviously, Halloween weekend, people are doing other things.
That's not going to be it. Looking at these pre-sales from Predator Badlands, I'm not confident we get there November 7th. If Running Man can surprise us, on that opening weekend. Maybe we get there November 14th, especially since we've got Now You See Me, Now You Don't also complementing that weekend.
Once we get to there, we have like 2 or 3 a week consistently through the holiday seasons.
Some of the holiday titles might have to do some heavy lifting.
Well, and we have one
Exactly.
fewer holiday title as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, coming in from Angel Studios, a big switch on the schedule. We were expecting on December 19th, opening head-to-head against Avatar Fire and Ash, the Zero AD biblical epic from Angel Studios. That is now completely off the schedule. That's now in the TBD column. Walking into its place is the animated movie David, which Angel Studios had announced a couple years back. It disappeared from the schedule earlier this year, but now it's been secured for distribution by this company. It will be hitting theaters on December 19th. In terms of dollar for dollar comparison, we expect a similar opening weekend between David and Zero AD, but longer legs on David because it is a family title. It is a biblical story, and it is opening around Christmas. Expect it to play second, third, fourth, fifth fiddle on opening weekend. There's a lot of competition there, but it's going to have enough legs to really carve out a niche for itself in the marketplace going into December and January.
And when we'll see Zero AD, I mean, it's the newest film from the gentleman who directed Sound of Freedom. We'll have to see where that one ends up on the calendar.
Yeah, I think it's hard done, I think, just by a very packed schedule. I think putting it in the back burner for now makes sense when you look at what can make a bigger impact on December 19th. With Avatar being there, I think David is the right call. And you just have a lot of opportunities to get Zero AD back in theaters in that entire first quarter or maybe early Q2. I'm thinking something like April, May. You have some opportunities there. There's a lot of gaps in that schedule in 2026 for Zero AD to find some breathing space.
Interesting to see if they do, because their release strategy up to this point is very holiday heavy. Sound of Freedom came out over July 4th weekend. Like, they tend to be very bullish and ambitious with their release dates. But yeah, I mean, Q2 box office there's a real opportunity there. I feel like that's a refrain for a lot of the sequels that have not done so well at the box office this year. Like, you should have released it in March.
Mm-hmm.
Or April.
There's been a lot of those moments, right, where you see movies going into a crowded release date and you just, like Rebecca says, hey, we could have used this 2-3 weeks ago. Everybody would have benefited from it. But I think that's going to be the lesson that Angel takes in finding a new spot for Zero AD. There are a lot of weekends in that entirety of Q1, in April, in May, where this can go. Yeah, so we'll be tracking that story in the coming weeks and months over on our website, boxofficepro.com, where you can find the latest news in the exhibition industry. Other than that, we don't have any guests lined up for this episode. And in next week's edition, Rebecca, Chad, and I are going to be going over our favorite Halloween movies of the last 10 years. So don't forget to rate, subscribe, and tune into this episode. New editions of the Box Office Podcast come out every single Thursday. So thanks again for listening. And on behalf of Rebecca, Chad, and myself, thanks again for supporting us. We will talk to you again next week.